Welcome to Inner Edison podcast, where we believe our greatest failures often lead to our greatest accomplishments. I'm your host, Ed Parcaut, and today's guest is a perfect example of that belief in action. Joining us is Marianne Hickman, an international speaker, coach, and business mentor who went from being a single mom on food stamps to becoming a millionaire speaker, trainer, and entrepreneur. She's taken the stage over 2,000 times across 17 countries and now helps others do the same. If you've ever struggled with confidence, clarity, or how to turn your voice into value, this episode is going to hit home for you. Let's bring in our guest. Marianne Hickman, thank you so much for coming on the Inner Edison podcast today. I really appreciate you being here.
Ed, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to bless everyone on the other end of this. I'm excited to bless you and all the flies on the wall.
I don't have my grandfather's dairy. I have. Now you brought that up. That reminds me. When I was a kid, man, the wires would be black, and it's not from the color of the wire, because it was all the fluff on the that's how I knew I did not want to work on a dairy the rest of my life.
Oh my gosh,
this dairy, how nasty it is!
It's gross.
It's really hard work too. And cows don't take a day off, but that's not why we're here. We're here about you, not about me. All right. So this podcast is your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats, period. That's how I look at things. And that's why I started this. I'm in the mortgage industry, but I want to do something outside of my industry. And I got into this in 2020. And then we became one of the top 1% podcasts in the nation. Today, that's a totally different rule. I don't know if you know that, but I came up with this Elite 21 thing that I researched it. You heard that too on that one. I was like, damn, I got to stop talking. Everybody's hearing everything.
That's the point, isn't it?
For you that don't know this, because I started Pod Veteran, which is a veteran podcasting course, but we are allowing everybody else in it who wants to come in, and they're coming in under the reserves. Like how I put that together.
I love that. That's a great terminology.
Yeah. So that way they can still get because the thing is with veterans, we are attention to detail. We're on it. You know, if we say we're going to do it, we do it. We don't necessarily have that with everybody else. So that's why if you're coming in under the reserves, we expect you to finish the course, do everything that we help you to do so that you can become a great podcaster. But if you don't know it, 90% of podcasts fail by the third episode. And then after that, 90% of that fails by the 20th episode. And if you get to the 21st episode, then you are golden. You're Elite 21. And I was joking on one of my other podcasts, Aces 53 on Tuesday. I'm like, it's pretty sad when you just got to get to 21 episodes and you're in the top 1% of podcasts these days.
Well, isn't that indicative of human behavior in general? Isn't it indicative of human behavior that we as human beings don't do what we say we will do? We don't show up when we say we're going to show up. The easiest way to stand out in whatever your profession, whether you're a parent or whether you work for someone, whether you own a company, is to just do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it.
Yeah. I always say, do what you say or say what you'll do.
Yeah. Yeah. And they should be the same.
Well, or just tell me this is all you're going to do. Then I know that's all you're going to do. But that's the same thing. But it's just instead of, it's just one of those things. You're right. It is the same thing. But people don't. I mean, my background, military, you don't have a choice back in the day. Today's military is a little different. It's getting back to where it should be. But it used to be. It was not one. It was not about the individual. It was about the whole thing. And then it got to a point where it's about the individual. And now it's going back to the way it should be. And I'm not going to get into politics because that's my radio show. I have many avenues to do all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I read your bio and a bunch of stuff about you. Truly, were you on food stamps?
Yes, absolutely. I used to carry that food stamps card around with me just as a reminder of where I came from. I used it as a stage prop to show everybody. It's ironic that I used it as a prop or a teaching tool because I was so embarrassed to pull it out of my wallet at the store. I didn't want anybody to see it because it was just, oh my God, the guilt of your tax dollars are paying for my food. That I just felt so guilty doing that because I think inside of me, I knew that I was meant for bigger. I was meant for more. This quote unquote shouldn't be the case and so forth. And I actually lost that food stamps card with a touch of irony on a trip to a fancy hotel in Mexico. I never saw it again. But that wasn't just food stamps. It was multiple forms of assistance. I was on the government HEAT program. I was getting assistance from my church. I was getting assistance from people would show up to my front doorstep at Christmas time with a jar of coins. I kept the jar because it meant so much to me. A jar of coins that had been gathered by members of my church that said, you don't have a Christmas, but we could give you this. So that, I mean, financially, it's not where I started, but it's what I got to. That was the darkest financial time, which was accompanied by a dark time in my relationship with my ex-husband. It was accompanied by being overweight and not fit and not healthy. And I'm not going to sit here and say that we're not going to trauma compare. We're not going to say that my trauma is better or worse than anybody else's. But even though all of our circumstances are different, the pain that we feel is the same. That our circumstances are different, but the pain that we feel is the same. You don't have to say, oh, I felt loneliness, and here are the mile markers that you have to feel when you feel loneliness, or I felt scared, and here are the mile markers that you justify feeling scared. We can feel those things no matter what is going on in our world experience. So that's a long answer to your question. Yeah, I was definitely on food stamps and more.
The reason I bring it up, for most people don't realize, most people who go into business, who become successful, there's like these 4 different things. I knew a guy who would say there's 4 things of every character most of the entrepreneurs are at least 3 of those. And one is they come from some tragedy in their life where they lose everything. Mm-hmm. And some people do it multiple times. But myself, my dad was hairy cell leukemia. He died when I was 12, and we became dirt road poor. And when I went to high school, I had a pair of jeans and 3 shirts and holy shoes, and that was just it. And I ended up working, doing all this different stuff to get the stuff I wanted. Am I crying about that? No, but that is just who made me who I was going forward. And yes, I've failed many times through this time. So I went back to zero many times, and then some of the times it's not my fault, but I have to own it.
Well, that's the difference, right? In Jocko Willick's book, Extreme Ownership, no, it's not going to be our fault all the time, but it is our responsibility. Right. It's up to us to do something about it. And yeah, you're going to bounce off ground zero more than once. Absolutely more than once. But that is the measure. I was studying mental health this week especially. I was studying mental health and the hallmarks of mental health. And this is hard to Google, because when you Google mental health, it will show you everything that mental health is not. Because there's not a picture of pristine mental health. And by all the studies and reading the journals, and I had some little bit of help from ChatGPT, who did some diagnostics for me, resilience is one of the hallmarks that I've called distilled from mental health. What is your ability to bounce back? How fast do you bounce back when you get smacked down? Those 7 times you get knocked over and you get up 8 times, how quickly can you do it the next time? That's resilience. It's not to say that we won't smack down again, and I'm not done being smacked down. But how fast can we get up? That's a sign of mental health.
It's again, I'm going to bring up Steve Sims, but his dad said this to him. I'm sure it was from somebody else. But he said, you don't drown by falling in the water. You drown by staying there.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Exactly.
And the long story short is, whatever happens to you, the question is, yes, you need to find out, because I'm going to put this on me real quick. So last 2 years have been horrible in the mortgage industry, which has allowed me to do some other things. But when it first happened, I was really pissed, because I had just spent years building a company, building a team that was amazing. And it got tore up within a few months because of the fact that somebody didn't like a pipeline, and that's all I'm going to get politically. And then that caused inflation. That's the starting of it. And then we went 5% in interest rate, which I've never seen in my lifetime. I've seen 1 to 2% when you still have enough for people to buy homes and everything else, but this was just stopped. And I got to a point where I was kind of pissed. And again, I don't know why Steve and I hadn't spoken to Steve in a couple of years before he passed away, and we just were in different things. But he was on a thing talking about one of his friends who was in a wheelchair, whatever happened to him, he always said, did this happen to me or did this happen for me? And then, so I was like, okay, God dang. I was like, you fuck, really? And so I started thinking, okay, all the things I've wanted to do. I wrote a book prior to that. I was in a documentary prior to that. But the things that I really wanted to do, additional books, setting up different, the courses, the other stuff. I had this task list so long of all the stuff I wanted to start and do, all these different forms of income and everything else. And I never got to it, because that was so cheap and easy money to be made in the mortgage industry until it's gone. And then it's not. And so that got to a point where no matter whatever happens to you, you need additional forms of income, multiple streams of income.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Past is what you don't need to worry about.
And to your point about this for me versus to me, I haven't found an example where that can't be said when we go through struggle or challenge or trial. I have not yet found an example where it stays only to me. I've always put it this way. When I got divorced and I became a single mom of 5 kids, I didn't ask for that. No one gets married thinking they're going to get divorced. It just doesn't, unless maybe it's some kind of weird green card marriage and it was prearranged. Who knows what? But when I was in my ugly cry with the snot bubbles coming out of my nose and the tear-stained face, my face hurt because I was crying so much and so hard. It was the death of what I thought it was supposed to be. It was the death of what I hoped a marriage could be. And as time passed, and it did require some time, but as time passed, I realized that it was ugly wrapping paper, but it contained the most beautiful gift. Most hideous of wrapping paper, the crappiest wrapping job you can imagine, but it contained the most beautiful gift. And it's the gift of my husband now, who is my best friend in the world. It is the gift of bringing another child into this planet who is the joy of all of our lives. We're raising 6 kids together. And I have to say, I owe a lot of what I have now to unwrapping that gift and being willing to go through the ugly wrapping paper and the paper cuts with the lemon juice on it. That brought me here. But that's a point, Alex Hormozi talks about this, where we're going to either, when we hit rock bottom, keep digging because we haven't really hit rock bottom yet, or we're going to bounce off. And that's back to this resilience thing. You decide. I firmly believe that we decide what rock bottom is. And because we decide that, it is the definition of what we do with what we've been given, even if we didn't ask for it. And sometimes we did. But what are we going to do with it? That's the question.
All right, so let's go through this is a great conversation, by the way. Thank you for being on today. Not many people understand everything that has happened or are willing to talk about failures. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I said this and you listened to one of those podcasts, but I actually stopped this show for 6 months. People wouldn't talk about their failures. And I just got tired. I'm like, you have to talk about your failures because that's what the show's about, first of all. Or they would say some little failure. And I was like, okay, come on, give me a break. I know who you are. If you go back and look at some of the episodes, first year, second year, I had some really big people on, and I'm saying not to say that you're not that same person. I'm just saying, but I'm
popular as cheese.
No, but I'm just saying there's a bunch of people who I've had on and I know them and I know what they said their failure was. I'm like, okay, you gotta be kidding me. I lost more of that on a loan. And I've had processors lose me more money than that on a monthly basis by making mistakes and then me making it right. You have to talk. And then I had somebody else who said one, but it was truly what he felt because he was not able to do something later. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that failure was, I just like, okay, I want you to tell the truth and tell the failure so people understand what happens. Yeah. You're going to come across stuff that you don't know. You're going to go bankrupt. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Who knows what that failure is and what that's going to affect you. But whatever it is, you're going to get through it and get on the other side of the question is, what does that look like? And that's what you got to figure out.
Yeah, well, I got content for days on failures, man. I have messed up more times than I have succeeded. Absolutely messed up more times than I have succeeded. And sometimes, like we mentioned before, sometimes it's of my own making and sometimes it's circumstantial, but it doesn't matter. I mean, that's not the point. And gosh, I failed as a mom. I have failed in business. I have closed doors of businesses that I purchased, some of them very recently. We've had multiple businesses shut down. I have been the victim of scams. I have been the victim of manipulative behavior. I have been like, that's all happened. So, I mean, if you want to jump into failure, take your pick.
Well, I want to go about parent failure. The thing is, I look at it this way: as long as I'm better than my parents, I've done much better.
Well, isn't that what we all hope for?
Yeah, well, it was not very hard. It was not very hard on my family. My dad, he was a bigot. We'll just leave it at that. So as long as I'm not racist, I'm really good.
There you go.
But he was a heavy-handed. He grew up Iowa farm boy, believed in hitting people. I say there's 2 things I learned from my dad. First, how to duck, and life's not fair.
Oh,
yeah. So I mean, that was that's really
for that.
Yeah. Well, that's But he died when I was 12. So luckily for me, as bad as that was, that made me into a totally different person. Because if he would have been there, who knows how I'd been. My mom was, she never dealt with anything. She let things get so huge and she'd sweep it under a rug until we all tripped over it. And then it just blew up. And it was always a blow up on Thanksgiving or something, So.
Yeah. Oh, and that's when those things come to a boiling point. That's when everything comes to a head, is those holidays all the time.
All right. So how did you go from, I know it wasn't a straight thing, but you went
Of course not.
Yeah. But speaking on, how did you get on stages? Because that for the past few years, it's been a big push for people to get on. Two things have been a big push: write a book and get on stages. That's what everybody wants, to do those two things. For me, I prefer talking here. I prefer podcasting, lives, all those different things. You get me on stage, I can do really well, but it's just a different, I get to have a one-on-one conversation with that person, and I get to understand them. Plus I get to ask them many questions that many people, I always say my wife used to grab my leg and tell me to shut up at different dinners and everything else, because I'm asking questions like, why did you vote that way? Why did you think that? I want to know, because I'm a curious person. I want to understand human nature to a certain point, because everybody's different. We grow up totally different by different things that hit us in life, and how we come across and how we think differently. We're never going to be the same. You can have twins in the same household and they grow up, one's an alcoholic and one's not, and one says I'm alcoholic because my dad was, and one says I'm not alcoholic because my dad was.
Exactly. And that brings,
whatever it is, that's just an example. So,
well, that what you mentioned, you used a very particular word that I have been mulling over recently, and that is curiosity, because I believe curiosity is everything that's right with this world. Curiosity is everything that's right, because curiosity begets understanding. Because if you're curious enough, you won't stop being curious until you understand. And I heard Simon Sinek say recently that the curiosity, he talks a lot about curiosity. He's written books about the power of why and so forth, and just asking questions. But what he said really stuck out to me, especially now. When we ask questions, we discover that most often, I won't use the blanket superlative of every time, but most often we find that people with opposing viewpoints believe that they are doing good. They believe that they are doing good and right and true. And we can eliminate so much conflict, so much unnecessary violence by understanding and seeking understanding, because it is my experience that more often than not, we come down to a common page. We come down to a place where we can agree. We come down to the literal sentence where we are united. And we do believe the same thing, even though our approach is different, and our approach probably will change when we get curious enough.
Yeah. From being on radio and everybody I've talked to, I know that pretty much we're all in the middle. We have a little changes, and that's not trying to get political, but I'm just saying we're pretty much all in the middle on how we believe on things. We might have one or two different things. Then you have just those little fringes on the outside, 0.5% to 1%, that are so loud that we think that's really how people think, and it's not. And people need to understand that. And they also need to understand on social media, 90% of the stuff put on there is by 10% of the people.
Yeah. And your algorithm will spoon feed you.
Yeah.
That which you interact with.
Yeah, I know I get in trouble because I look at everything. I'm like, all of a sudden, it's like my wife will send me something, and I'm like, next I got all this stuff I'm like, stop it.
You really want to mess with her? Just talk about adult diapers around her phone. Then she's going to get ads for it. It's going to be great.
That's all right. We don't need to do that. Because our phone's in the same room all the time.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So you were on food stamps. How did you get out of that? We didn't even get into that part of it. Because I want to know how you got on stages and where you are now.
Well, there's a lot of overlap there. I didn't start my marriage on food stamps. It kind of devolved.
I know.
That, right?
We talked about that. So you were married, you had your 5 kids, and then you got divorced. I don't know. But did you own businesses prior to this? Or did
I did, but I didn't know that I did. I was raised by entrepreneurs. And so when I started doing things in exchange for money, I didn't realize that it was really owning a business. I thought I was just getting paid. I owned a photography business, and because I didn't really treat it as a business, because I didn't know how, that business kind of tapered out and died. I still love to pick up the camera every once in a while, but it's not my main source of income now. So I owned businesses kind of by accident, and I simultaneously had a W-2. So I was doing both. I was just bringing in income wherever I could and however I could, legally, morally, and ethically, of course. And when I was on food stamps, oh gosh, I was so angry, and I was so desperate because I was going to college at the time and I was spending a lot of money on tuition. I was spending a lot of money on stupid textbooks, and I'm going there to college and I'm looking at my Italian professor and I'm looking at my photography professor and I'm looking at my, math professors, and I'm looking at their income that I Googled, not specifically by person, but generally. And I said, none of these people are making as much as I want to make. None of these people are. And I looked up my bloodlines. I looked at my family and I said, some of these people I really admire financially, and some of these people I don't want to become financially like. Who can be the person that teaches me this money game? Because I don't get it. I'm obviously missing something. I don't get it. And I sat down with God and I negotiated with him out of my anger and spite. And I said, listen, gumption, I know. You're either going to put a box of 100 grand on my front porch, or you're going to show me someone who does have this game figured out, and I can learn from them. I can be instructed, and I can be around them enough, and I can figure this thing out. And I checked the porch for 4 days. I thought that like some paper box would show up with cash in it, right? That didn't happen. And I'm glad it didn't, because that would have been a one-time infusion and not a long-time instruction.
The sad thing is, it came on the 5th day.
I checked then too, but I had met the person already. I still check the porch. Usually the only thing is there is expenditures of money in the form of Amazon packages, right? But I went to what most people do is we go to conferences. We want to learn and we want to study. And I went to a conference and I saw the person up there, and I saw it. I had been to conferences before. And what I saw as a common thread in many of the conferences I went to was the moment when the speaker leading their own conference said, if you want this thing, or if you want more of this thing, it's at the back table in the back of the room. It's $300. Go get it. And I had a hard time not judging that as sleazy, skeezy, blah, blah, blah. But I remember being at one conference in particular when I wanted the thing at the back of the room and I couldn't afford it. It wasn't intellectually and financially responsible for me to go get it. It was either that or groceries. And I picked groceries. But I watched as the majority of a 700-person room got up and went to the back and happily exchanged their credit card for that stack of DVDs. That shows how long ago this was. Happily swiped their credit card for a stack of DVDs and say that there's got to be something here. So I started going to every single conference I could, every single one. And I studied the curriculum that was presented to me, but I also studied how they presented. How did they move the room? Did they leverage stories? Absolutely. How did they present those stories? How did they solve problems in the room? And the most moving conferences I went to was when the speaker gave us the solution where we didn't have to buy it. They gave us the solution in the room. So if we wanted to, we could go see it to execution. And then they said, if you want me to do it with you, here's how. It's $50, it's $1,000, it's $5,000, it's $10,000, whatever it is. And I started studying these things, and I'm still a student of it. I'm still studying it because I'm not perfect at it. I don't know anyone that's absolutely perfect at it, but I'm studying on how to give people so much value that they want more value. It's not gatekeeping. It's not holding back. It's giving and giving and giving and giving. And then saying, if you want my time or you want me to do it for you, that's when we have an exchange. But I'm going to teach you how to do it for free. Alex Hormozi ascribes to this too. And I'm so inspired by this breath of fresh air that's doing this so publicly. And so I started to study that, but I didn't have enough clout. I didn't have enough life experience. I didn't have a curriculum. I didn't have a keynote. And I thought, where do I start? So I hitched myself to one of these mentors and I just followed them around everywhere. I did everything they did. And one day my face had shown up so much. I remember I was at their house and they had their cell phone. They said, I've just got this lead in from YouTube. And he handed me a cell phone. He said, if you can close this lead on a purchase, I'll give you $100. And I was like, okay, cool. They just talked to you. This should be easy. And I did it and I got $100. And they said, do you want to do it again? Do you want to do it again? And so then I learned the psychology and the game of sales on how to get people what they really wanted and how to do it in a ethical and moral way without manipulation or whatever it is. It really was providing answers for people. And I started to make some money doing that. And it was so relieving to me when I got my first $4,000 check for 2 weeks worth of work, and I could start to dig myself out of this financial hole I was in. And then I started doing it so well that they asked me to teach other people how to do it. And then I started leading Salesforce. And we took this company from $30,000 a week to $300,000 a week regularly within a period of 6 months. And it was cool to get the paychecks, but it was even cooler than that was knowing that this was a sustainable skill that could go anywhere and follow me anywhere, but also seeing the men and women that worked on that sales floor with me pay off their debt. They got out of credit card debt. They were able to take that money to the bank, and some of them even used it to get their kids back and got custody back of their children. It was such a miracle for me to see this happen, to see it happen repeatedly, and to see it happen with other people, because now I knew I had something.
So what year was this?
Oh gosh, when I first started in that sales company, this was about, I'm going to say 5 years ago. So we're talking what year is it now? 2020? Yeah.
Yeah. So before COVID.
Yeah, it was right when COVID started. I remember running the sales floor from home, right when COVID started.
The reason I was asking is you were talking about how to do sales and not manipulate. So I've been in sales since I was 27. That's what I got into. When I got out of the service, that's kind of what I got into. And I loved it. I listened to everything out there, Zig Ziglar, because he's the best about making sure all the objections are in your actual sales. So, when you're talking to somebody, it's in your script. And I've had people where I do another show called Aces 53, and it's from college that my instructor said, remember 4 aces and a joker. And so attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, and smile is what you bring into the table in sales. That joker is that unique ability that you have naturally or something you learn. I sold by the phone. I had no idea I had a deep voice until I put headphones on. And that was in 2018.
Got that Chris Voss late night FM DJ voice.
Well, I did very well. Back then is when we used to do refinances by the phone, and you would send a package out to them. I would get 90% of my packages back and close 90% of them. The person closest to me was 48%.
Wow.
There was 2 things I did. 1, I had the voice, and 2, I made sure they wanted it before I sent it out to them. And, I knew, I learned every close there was, but you didn't have to manipulate people. You just needed to talk to them and connect with them. And one of the things I would do is when I call them on the phone and they picked up the phone, I was listening to the background to see what I could hear in the background. If I heard kids, I talked about my kids and their kids, and you connected with them. It's just things like that to connect with people. And the most important thing that somebody wants to hear from you when you're talking to them is their name. Yep.
In fact, that was a number. There was a study done that it wasn't about the name, but it was a study done about telephone conversations back when we had switchboards and people, connecting operators and all that. They did a study on the most used word scraped from all of those phone conversations. And the most commonly used word was I, which is exactly to your point. The most fascinating thing about any human being is themselves. So when you can touch on that, when you can be interested in what they are interested in, my mother taught me this. She was so good at this. And when I came home from Walmart for the first time, when I walked there by myself when I was 12, I wanted to show her the shampoo that I bought. I wanted to show her that I bought my own tub of cheese puffs for $5 all by myself. And she would stop what she was doing on the computer and listen to me. And she got excited right along with me. And that is one of the most valuable lessons my mother's taught me, is be interested in what others are interested in. And it comes from, yes, using their name, but also listening for those ambient noises, listening to what they're doing. What were you doing earlier today? Tell me about you. And it's not for manipulation purposes. It's because I want to understand you.
Right. Real sales is just helping somebody, you're persuading, helping them do what they want to do in the first place. They want to buy it. You're just here to help them get there and make those decisions. They want to do it anyway. So you're just helping them. And people don't understand that. I'm not in sales. Sales is a 4-letter word. Yeah, sure it is, but it's the best thing in the world. You sell people all day long. You sell your kids on not to run across the street. You don't understand. You use a form of sales in everything you do. And for people to think, I don't want to be in sales, you are in sales. I don't care. When you go to your boss and ask for a raise, you're selling yourself on how good you are. When you go for a job interview, you're selling yourself how good why they should be buying you and hiring you. It's no difference. It's just a form of persuading people what to do.
And if you think you're bad at sales, congratulations, you've made your first sale.
Right. Yeah. Yourself.
You just sold yourself on that idea. So have fun with that one.
Yeah. And I remember it used to be years ago when people go buy cars, they were like, I got an amazing deal. I go, if you think you got an amazing deal, they really got one over. Now we have a place in my town, Roberts, who this is the price. They make like $800 on the car. They don't negotiate. You walk all over the lot, sit in the cars. And when you're ready to buy, you walk in and you say, I want to buy. And they sell more cars, used cars here in Modesto than any other dealer in California.
Wow. See, that's the thing. The confidence, I like to say it this way, be as confident as a cup of Starbucks. We pay $8 for that crap. I think the most expensive order from Starbucks was a $52 cup of coffee. I looked it up. It was wild. They had like all the shots and the toppings and espressos and all that. But it's coffee. It costs like 3 cents to make, right? It costs nothing. But if you can walk in with the confidence and you don't have to discount. I'm not against discounts and promotions. I'm not against that. But once you know your value, especially in the world of coaching and mentorship, I work with people a lot on assigning their own dollar per hour value, because the cost of your mentorship program is whatever you set it to be. And you should set it a little higher than necessary, because people that are willing to invest in that, I'm not asking you to rip people off. Don't be like that. But people that really invest in themselves, they're going to take your course seriously. If they have to sacrifice a little bit, or maybe even significantly like I did, they're going to demand results from that. And that's a huge favor you give them.
Right. And don't lie about your course. Like if you so I reached out to, I'm not going to say their name, but basically it's a mortgage course thing. And I was just curious if they had a veteran military discount. And the guy said, yes, we do. Well, then I got another email on my other thing that says we have 2 for 1. Type in trust and you get it for it was the same cost, plus you got an extra ticket for free. So they lied. Yeah, they lied. Instead of just saying, no, we don't, but we have this and you get this, that's all you had to say. But the fact that you then didn't say that, because I always do that because I haven't done it, because I'm trying to put a whole list together, all the different things that veterans can get, just because that's how we are. We're veterans. And I reached out to another one and they're like, no, we don't have one, but could you be here the day before for 3 hours, help us set up, and then do this other thing, and you can get in as a volunteer for $50. It's a huge conference. I'm like, I almost said yes, but I was just curious. But I told somebody else who lives in the same town, and he's like, I'll do that. And so he reached out to him. That's
great. Yeah. And it's like we were talking about earlier with AI and versus real people. Just if you're using an AI bot, don't try and pretend that it's you.
Right.
Right. We all know. And it's so ironic that their keyword was trust, because there's nothing.
I was on this other thing. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll tell you when we're done.
Oh man. Yeah. That's why just be honest. And it takes so much less effort to be honest.
Yeah. Because now you just lost me. I'm not coming at all. Even if I was willing to pay the whole thing. I was just curious. And now you did that. Now you just taught me that, hey, I shouldn't trust anything you say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you're willing to lie about this small thing, what's to say that you're not lying about whatever you're saying from the stage, or whatever your coursework is, or whatever your materials can do? What's to say you're not lying about your customer testimonials? What's not to say that everything is in jeopardy? You've just jeopardized our entire relationship.
Yeah. Well, I know the person who put this on, he's been in the industry forever. I mean, he is the guru in our industry, and I'm sure it's just somebody who's on his team.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, well, that's a problem,
Yep. Because now he's jeopardized somebody else's reputation.
Yeah. So be careful what you do is all I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But not everybody's us. And I always tell people, when I worked for a guy, I thought I'd spend his money the same way I'd spend as the owner. Then I became an owner, and you're like, no, I did not, even though I thought I did. And the stresses that you have that other people don't know, you have when you become the owner. And so you have to understand that. I was talking to somebody else, and he's talking about stressful nights. Yeah, you have stuff as being an owner that other people don't have. So, but
no one will care more than you,
right,
as the owner. It's it's not possible, and that's okay. But you do have to understand that no one will care as much as you.
Well, nobody cares anything about you except for where you're at. They don't care how you got there. Mm-hmm. They just want to know where you're at right now. And a lot of other things that we run into is when we get a lot of grief from somebody, they're always from below. It's not from above.
It's interesting. Michael Phelps did a video. I think it was an ad for a therapist app or something similar to that. This ad was one of the most brilliantly constructed ads I have seen in a very, very long time. This was an ad that was narrative, well, not narrative, it was dialogue free in the beginning. And it was Michael Phelps swimming in the dark. Just, you could tell his first thing in the morning. He was the last one out of the pool. It's him at the gym. It's him scarfing down stacks of waffles and all of the carbs and the proteins. And it gets to the point where it's flashing these different sequences of prep repetitively. And finally, when it reaches like, oh my gosh, are we going to, and then it flashes to him at the top of the podium, draped in all his medals, his gold medals. And the one line from this commercial that I will never forget is this: "It is what we do in the dark that gets shown in the light." When someone asks you, do you want a six-pack? Everyone's going to say yes. You're going to say yes. But when they ask you, do you want to do 100 crunches for 100 days straight? I don't know if I want to do that. Well, then you don't want the six-pack. So the work is hard. And sometimes you will plant trees that your great-grandchildren will sit under and you don't get to see the reward. But if the work is worth doing, then you're okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, because anything that there's so much you put time into that you don't see right away. And it takes years, and people think they want instant gratification these days, and it doesn't happen. I want to be an influencer. Well, I don't want to be one, and I am one, I guess, according to the numbers. And it's like, it's just all I'm trying to do is have conversations with people and I've been doing this podcast for 5 years. Almost 5 years, 4 years. I am now putting together systems that I didn't put together before, certain things that I'm doing, because I finally got into a point where with my course, I'm like, okay, if I got my course, I got to show them exactly how to do on the other side so the people don't stop doing the podcast. The easiest thing to do is to talk to you and have the conversation. The hardest thing after that is the editing, the thumbnails, uploading, the scheduling, the thanking them, the this and that, all those things that my first 2 years of having my podcast were the easiest. I was making a lot of money in the mortgage industry. I had the right people doing it. They did everything for me. Industry changed and I took it back. And at that point, I made some major changes on and I researched stuff, and people were like, this is how you should do it. I'm like, well, how should I do it? And, well, that's our job. We help you do blah, blah, blah. And this is what we'll tell you to do. And they told me what to do. And I said, thank you so much for that. I appreciate you telling me that. Now I'm going to go do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beauty. And you just touched on the point of give. And sometimes we pay somebody else to do it for us. And sometimes we're like, okay, now I know what to do. I'm going to go do it. And that a lot of times that just depends on your time versus financial ability. Sometimes we have more time than money, and sometimes we have more money than time. Right. And that's when you know when and how and where to invest, obviously after doing due diligence and do research. So you've been running this for 5 years. How many episodes are we in now?
A lot. One a week for each one of those years.
Yeah. So that's one a week. That's 52 weeks. You're probably over 300 episodes. You're probably way north of 300 episodes by now.
Easily.
Right.
I could get in there and tell you, I know I have over thousands of episodes of everything I've done.
Well, that's just this show too. You got all these other shows.
Yeah, right? I do a daily podcast too. So I do a radio show called Real Estate Jerky. We give you something to chew on. That radio show has been going on since 2018, once a week. And then I was like, what do I do? Because that's 51 to 71,000 listeners locally. But how do I get more people? So then we put into a podcast on Monday. And so I've been doing that since we've had that show. And then I do a daily podcast called Real Estate Jerky Daily. And it's around 8:30 in the morning. My same co-host, we come in, we talk about what's going on in the market, what's going on with everything for about 20 to 30 minutes. And we have local people who watch us and constantly come on. And then that one alone, within the first, this is what I said the other day. I said, if you do a daily podcast for 4 weeks, you're now at 20 episodes. That you become the number one podcast in 4 weeks. I said that, and even as a daily podcast, there's hardly any less of them. But right away, it was like, you're the number one podcast of daily podcasts. I'm like, okay, how many are there and what's going on? And then I found out the numbers. But what I enjoy it. And so 5 a week times, we've been doing that one for almost 3 years now. So there's thousands of episodes of all this different stuff out there, plus the ACEs. So ACEs 53 that I was talking about is the one I told you about, sales. That one, Brian Galke and I just do on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's alive on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and we don't even upload it as a podcast. We just don't care. It's just, and then we've had people come on and go, man, that's amazing information you're giving us. So we're finally going, we need to upload it as a podcast. But so we do a lot. I do a lot. I do 14 episodes a week.
Oh, shoot, man. Yeah. And I'm sure it didn't start that way. Day one wasn't straight out the gate, 14 episodes a week.
I was horrible on radio. I was the worst on radio. I was live and I was really bad. But people always ask, and then I started going live. Just, when live became a thing and started to become a thing, and people go, why are you going live? I'm going, because I want to learn how to do it. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I have so many of them done. And it's weird because I have no problem talking right here all the time, like I told you before, but going on stage, it still gives me butterflies, but it's no big. It
should.
Yeah.
It should give you butterflies because we have an obligation when we take the microphone. We really do. We have an obligation when we take the microphone not to aggrandize. I finally pronounced it right. Not to self-aggrandize, not to be in the limelight for the limelight's sake, but we have a sacred responsibility when we take this microphone to serve the people that are on the other side of the speakers. We have an obligation to show up for the people that showed up and bothered to listen. We have an obligation to answer the call of the person in the audience it was their last prayer to make it, to hear you. They are on the edge of then. And this isn't everybody. This is the one person that said, I was on my knees praying for an answer and I was led here. And that's why we have butterflies. And I don't think that should ever go away. Because there's a mantle, there's a weight of responsibility when you take the mic, just like we saw 1 week ago on September 10th. There's a weight to that microphone. And if we pick it up, we damn well better. And I don't know if I can curse on your show, but I just did. We damn well better be willing to lay down our life for what we put into that speaker, for what we put into that microphone, because if it's not worth your life, it is not worth your time.
Yeah, you're very religious if you think damn's a bad word. That just told me how religious you are.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, because people have said worse than that.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's why I put not for kids on everything.
We have to put that little E explicit on all the episodes.
No, you just put the no.
Oh, yeah.
Kids, no. For kids, no. Which Disney just got sued for because they didn't do that on their TikTok. On their YouTube channel, on their YouTube stuff. So they got everything and they shouldn't have. Got all their information. They should have, because when you do the no, if kids watch it, you don't get their information.
Man. Back to honesty and integrity.
But yeah, for me, like I ran my Rotary for a year. I was the president of my Rotary, and every meeting I ran it like amazing. I ran it like, nobody's business. And I spent like the night before making sure the PowerPoints were perfect. And I added music and video. I mean, it was a whole production I did. And, that was because that's me. That's what I do. I want to make sure if I want to do it, I'm doing it amazing. That's just how it is. And that's why I try to do everything I do. When I help people with loans and everything else, it's amazing journey for them. They think it's the easiest thing they've ever done. And that's what I want, because I want them to do it again. Yeah,
exactly. That there's this phrase that we've been bombarded with in the personal development space of the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. And I honestly have wrestled with that back and forth as to whether or not that is true, whether or not that is valid. And here's what I've come up with so far. The one thing versus everything. I do things that I care about the same. If I care about it, I do it the same way that I do the other thing that I care about. But if I don't care about it, I do it the same as all the other things that I don't care about. So I think that's what I've come up with so far. Someone texted me today, I don't think I'll be able to do X, Y, Z. And we were looking at organizing something together. And I was like, you know what? That's okay. It's just, you don't care about it right now. And that is okay. That is okay. But just tell me no. Tell me that it's not a priority for you. Don't tell me that it is when it's not. Just tell me it's not a priority.
Well, it's just like when people set appointments and then, but they don't plan on keeping them.
Oh, that false yes. Chris Voss talks about this in his book, Never Split the Difference. I'm sure you've read it. As if you're in sales, you probably read this book. The false yes is one of the most dangerous and prolific lies that we tell probably every day. I agree to the terms and conditions, which I've read. No, you haven't. You haven't even read them. No, you tell me that you're planning on being there in 5 minutes. I better see you in 5 minutes. If you plan on telling me that, if you don't mean what you say, then how can I trust what you say? I come from a, I was just going to say.
Oh, you're right. Because all I was going to say is I hate it when people say, give me a second, because I'll go 1,001.
Don't tell me that then, right? I come from a family of pilots, and I swear there needs to be a support group for people that are married to people who have experience in the sky, because we speak exceptionally literally, because oftentimes in the air, your life depends on it.
Yep.
Literally depends on it. So I tried, and I'm not perfect at this. Again, another superlative I need to avoid. But words mean things. My dad always said this to me. Words mean things. Your words matter, and how you say your words matters. So be deliberate with them. Yep. Say them on purpose.
Well, I mean, that's like attorneys. They use words all the time in court, and I use them in certain ways, and to where what I do for a living in the mortgage industry to. I do this too, but that's what I would, I let them interpret my meaning. If you understand what I mean by that. Yeah. But my interpretation might be something, because I used to help people with short sales back in 2006 through that whole period of time, because I did mortgages, and to get out of short sale was harder than it was to get into the loan to begin with. And so when people, certain things would come up, I'd let the underwriter, whoever was writing it, assume of what I meant when I said it, not fully explained it.
And that can go both ways.
Yeah, well, I wanted it to go the way I wanted. I always went the way I wanted it. So
yeah,
well, I know how to use words right, and words mean what you say. And that's why, I mean, if you're going to college, you should get a liberal arts degree. And the reason is because you'll be able to use that with everything that's coming up with the ChatGPT, and you'll be able to help other people understand how to say things and write things. Yeah.
Communication it's been under a microscope for me for a long time, down to the body language, down to the word structure, I thank you, Mrs. Wilson, for making me diagram sentences back in the day. I hated doing it back then, but it helps me understand our language now. You mentioned I'm a religious person. Someone called me a pod pastor. I'll take it now. Back in the day when God wanted to destroy a society, do you know what he did? He removed the common language. He introduced different languages. He didn't shut down their infrastructure. He didn't cut off their water supply. Life will find a way. But if you wanted to dismantle, listen to me very carefully. If you want to dismantle a society, and listen, if you're listening as your family, if you want to dismantle your family, if you want to dismantle a university, if you want to dismantle a society, remove their ability to communicate. Remove their ability to communicate. And many people will hear that and say, well, I want to dismantle it. I'm going to remove their ability to communicate, and it will backfire hard. But what I'm really saying is this: if you want to strengthen your communities, if you want to strengthen your families, if you want to strengthen the social constructs in which you spend your time and energy, then enhance your ability to communicate, enhance your understanding and comprehension of one another, study the white space, increase your vocabulary, understand body language, listen to the 90% of what is being expressed outside of the words that are being used, because that is where most of communication happens. If you want a better relationship with your spouse, increase your understanding, get curious, like we mentioned before. If you want a better relationship with your kids, get curious. If you want better sales in your business, increase your ability to communicate. That's my soapbox. I got to tell you, that is my soapbox.
Well, the best way to look at that is the First Amendment. Excuse me. If you look at it right now in the UK, how many people are getting arrested for saying things, and that on social media and all the different things, which is ridiculous. And if they take that, that's a form of communication. We were actually potentially going that way here in the States in the last few years, that thank God we're going the opposite way now, and things went the right way. But I mean, that's what they were trying to do. And also, if they have us at each other's throats and we're fighting, we don't understand what they're doing to us. And that's,
yes.
So that, yes.
Well, my kids just told me this morning, and I looked it up. Apparently, there's a tax to have a television in the UK. It's 174 pounds. I think it's per year to own it. You need a TV license. Guys, do you remember World War II when people needed licenses to own radios? Unless, and you can get around the TV license if you are only using their filtered subscripted channels. If you're only watching Disney and you're only watching Netflix, you don't have to have a TV license. Do you hear how asinine this is? Do we hear how, like, are you kidding me? I remember when I went to China, I was just on a 24-hour layover, not very long. And I went to open up my phone to go to Facebook because I wanted to share a picture of the view from the hotel. I couldn't access it.
Right.
I could not. Do you know what it's like to not have free speech? When I was on a bus in Vietnam, I asked our tour guide, what was the Vietnam War like here? What was the conversation about the war here? And he looked at me and he said, don't ask that. You're okay on this bus, but if you ask that question, once you get off this bus, you will be arrested. We don't know what we have.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you have Apple, but there is a Vietnam documentary on there, and it's from the Viet Cong side. They talked to both sides, and the Viet Cong was like, we have no idea why they were here. They had no idea why they were fighting. Like, we had no idea why we were fighting, and they had no idea why we were fighting, and they had no idea why we were invading their country.
God.
And so they were the ones who were digging the tunnels, right? Doing the tunnel. It's a great documentary, because you now see that, oh my God, we have no idea why we were there. And everybody felt that way. They felt the same way. And it's kind of like the Iraq war, because I interviewed a guy on my Helping the Brave podcast, and he wrote a book because he was in Iraq and his dad was in Vietnam, and the similarities to the same wars and everything it was about. And a lot of that stuff is connected, and people don't really realize that.
Oh, yeah. And isn't it more than ironic that wars start with words, then there's a lot of unnecessary death, and then wars end with words? I was just teaching this. Today's I don't know if it's a national federal recognized holiday, but it's Constitution Day. It's September 17th. This is the day that the Constitution really came to be. And so I was reading it with my children today, and I said, do you realize that wars start with words, then the bloodshed, and then the wars end with words? The war ended on the decks of the USS Missouri, which now stands in Pearl Harbor as a monument with signatures on a page. After all of the unnecessary deaths, it ended because a bunch of people got in a room and finally agreed to stop.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Marianne, what did I not ask you today? I should have asked you today.
What did you not ask me?
There was something you wanted to talk about today that would be a win, and I don't think I want to make sure you hit everything you wanted to talk about. We've been here for 52 minutes. Normally I go for 30.
Oh, goodness. Well, I feel
No, I don't stop podcasts if it's good. If it's a 15-minute podcast, it's never going to air.
I have, I know you mentioned you didn't want to go political, but
no, I have no problem with political. I just try not to push you in any way or another, because I don't know where you lie on that kind of stuff.
Oh, and it doesn't matter. And that's the point, is that even if we disagree politically, we get to have civil social discourse.
No, I know, but I just sometimes I try not to on this show go political, because I go so much political on my other shows that I don't need to. But I was trying to just it was about Inner Edison, your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats.
Yeah.
We talked about that, but I mean, if you want to go the Charlie Kirk thing, that is just horrible. And that's something, my biggest problem with that whole thing is you still have one side who doesn't want to come to these vigils and everything else.
And
if you guys don't want to listen to a podcast after this, I understand.
We love you anyway. That's okay. This was, for me, it was very real. I think a lot of people are saying that. I've seen a lot of people say that it hit harder than it made sense.
Yeah.
That it would hit
more than anything else. Yeah.
It was this, and I was trying to figure it out. Is it because it's 20 minutes from my house? Is it because we shared beliefs? Is it because not completely 100%, but we overlapped quite a bit? Is it, why is this? And I still haven't sorted all of that out in my mind, but here's what I went through in my brain. After that happened, it was a week ago today. After that happened, I looked at my children. I looked at my business. I looked at our motto. I looked at our mission statement. I looked at our values. And part of me, my Marco Polo'd my friend Heather, and I was like, listen, I'm going to move away. I'm just going to move up into the mountains and get my ranch. And we're just going to go off grid. And we're not ever going to put ourselves in a position where that could happen to us or someone we love. And I was this close to just doing it, selling my house, stopping. I almost canceled everything. And I sat there with this thought of, what do I do now? What do I do now? And it came to me, and I mentally put myself there on the quad. And I put myself nose to nose in my mind's eye with a man who just gave his life for what he believed in. And my mission and my husband's mission has been to put the microphone up to the mouths of people whose messages we can get behind, because we are raising our kids in this crazy, messed up world. And I just pray to God that my kids will encounter someone, the people that they go to school with, the people that they work with, will be people who are kind and people that are healthy and that people that are mentally sound, and the people that they drive down the street next to will be kind. Instead of flipping the bird, they'll say, whoops, my bad, and move along with their life. Those are the people that I pray to, or pray exist. And our mission with the company that we built is to teach speakers how to do this. So what that means is the speakers that we teach are going to teach the people that my children interact with. The more facilitators that I can train to get their message out there, there's going to be audiences that I will never see. And I just hope that they will see the people that I'm training, so that they'll be better people, so that their kids are nice to my kids on the playground and in the streets and at their jobs. And so when I sat there in my mind's eye and I faced spirit to spirit with Charlie, and I watched what none of us were meant to see, when that microphone fell from his hand. And I listened to my God. And he just asked me a question. He didn't tell me what to do, as God does. He says, are you going to pick up the microphone? And before I answered him, I had to ask myself this: what is the message that is worth? And I pray to God that is never going to be my calling, but is there a message that is worth leaving my children motherless? And in that moment, all of the fluff fell away. All of the fluff of everything. When I take the mic, it has to be for a message that I believe in. And here's the message. A lot of people don't understand this. I'm going to quote a scripture from Ephesians, and I'm going to summarize it for you. I'm not going to quote it for you. I'm going to summarize it for you. We don't fight flesh and blood. Some of us think we do. Some of us think we're fighting a side, and we're not. In the scriptures, it says we are not fighting a war against our brothers and our sisters and our flesh and blood. We're actually fighting a war against principalities and powers. And what most people don't understand is this: the principalities and powers that are named as the scriptures, most people misinterpret that to say we're fighting unjust governments. We're fighting unjust rulers. That's not what it means. If you look up the biblical definition of principalities and powers, do you know what it is?
Nope.
It is actually the hierarchy of angels. Principality is a title given to certain spirits. If you read Dante, you'll understand that each of the 7 layers of heaven, or 7 layers of hell that Dante talks about, and the hierarchy of heaven, those hierarchies of angels have names. It's like dukes, bishops, and so forth, except it's principality, powers, and dominions. There are hierarchies of angels. So the entities that you and I are wrestling with, it's the darkness. It's the higher ranking evil officials that walk around trying to infect our brains with hate. That's who the enemy is. It's not the right. It's not the left. It's not the red. It's not the blue. It's the darkness that tries to divide us. That's the enemy. That's the enemy. And if we can resist that enemy, then we've won. And spoiler alert, the good guys win, you guys. Yeah, the good guys win.
You see, my problem with this is, like I told my wife, this is the first thing this is the one that affected me the most out of anything. Trump, I like what Trump does. He's not my favorite person, but I like what he does. When he got shot, I was like, that's ridiculous. But Charlie was totally just having conversations with people who didn't really want to have a conversation, but wanted to tell them how it was and how they had the wrong, they didn't understand they were going to get to a point where they really might understand the other side. Because most people think and I'm just going to say that side, those people who go to the microphone, that if you're having a conversation, somebody has to win.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't walk away with having two different thoughts. And that's not the way it is. You walk away having two, you don't have to agree. You can agree to disagree, and that's okay in life. But the problem we've been over the past, I don't know, 20 years has been that we can't get along with each other. We have to fight constantly.
And that's the lie.
Yeah. And that was just to push to get us to not like each other, and so that they could take advantage of us. And I mean, because our government is a government, it's supposed to be there for the people, not there for them, for us. We shouldn't have to be paying as much as we pay into it. I'm not going to get into the whole state.
Oh boy, Tea Party much, anyone?
I'm just saying it's to a point. It's supposed to be a small government, not a huge government. I don't believe in a big government. Get out of my way. Let me live my life. Let me do what I need to do. I'll give you some taxes if I have to, but that's not what I want to do in the first year. In my way. My biggest problem I have in where I am right now is I have to have a business license, and I have to pay this mill tax for what? What am I getting out of besides you guys hounding me because I didn't have a bookkeeper at the time, or they didn't do their stuff, and I would always get a call. You need, it's like, tell me what you do for me, and I will pay you.
If you're my employee and I'm paying you, can you please give me your report? Where's your KPIs? Where's your critical drivers?
Well, that's why I don't have employees anymore. I have VAs.
Yeah, I have a lot of VAs, and I love the crap out of what they do for me.
Yeah, I have a pod, and then I have a person who oversees my pod.
Yeah, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's finally how I was able to get stuff done. And that was just so I've had a pod for about 6 months now, but I've had a person to oversee my pod for 30 days, and it's changed everything.
Oh yeah.
I had a manager inside, but it's not the same as this person. So.
Yeah. I remember we got a letter from our VA who works in the Philippines, and this was so cool. She sent us a letter or an email that said, hey, can I take 2 weeks off? And we're like, yeah, sure. You've never asked for time off. No problem. And she said, I want to take 2 weeks off because I'm taking my son to see my parents for the very first time. The son was 16 years old.
Wow.
And I like to think, and she didn't mention this, but she did mention that what we paid her was very, very significant to her. And it was within a year of her working for us that she asked for that time off. And I like to think that maybe we contributed to reuniting a family because we made it financially possible for her to buy a plane ticket.
Yeah. And they don't need much either over there.
No, it's so little, goes so far.
Yeah. I mean,
so far.
I go through a company. I don't know how you do yours, but I go through a company, oversees them, and they pick the right. And so I pay a little bit more, which I don't care. It's still cheaper than here, and I don't have to pay employee tax, and I don't have to worry about what they're doing. I don't have to worry about giving them work if they don't, if they're doing, I only pay them when they work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that part of it.
Yeah. And I give them a ton of tasks and expect them to get it done. And I tell this company, I said, here's the problem. You're dealing with a veteran. My attention to detail is huge. I expect the same from my people. I don't expect something to come back and then they forgot one thing, and then so that they could get it back and work another half hour. I don't want that. I'll just pay the extra hour to get it done right the first time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We like to say in our house, do it right or do it twice.
I don't want to do it twice.
No, I don't want to pay to do it twice either.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, because you had 6 kids, I had 5. So.
Yeah, well, you know about the big teams then, right?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. Too many kids.
I won't say that. I can't imagine cutting any, but
I'm just happy they're all out.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're
yeah.
I've been rethinking that because I've been studying a little bit of societal structure and familial structure. And there's part of me that's saying, I do want them to be self-sufficient. I do want them to contribute. But the thing that keeps going in my mind is this. There was a speaker that I listened to one time that had all the family members on a tandem bike. And when you're a baby, you can't reach the pedals, right? You can't reach the wheels. So we carry your weight. But as soon as your feet can reach the pedals, you're expected to help start pedaling. And as long as that's happening within our home, I don't care if they move out or not.
Yeah.
As long as everyone's pushing.
Yes, I looked at it. If you did your job right, they want to leave and have their own life.
I couldn't wait to, that's for sure, man. I was
Well, that's
out.
how it's supposed to be, because biggest problem we did is, we didn't have our kids work when they were in high school.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because it was, we had to do everything when we were kids. Let's have them just focus on education. I couldn't focus on education when I was a kid. I had to work. I had to do this. I didn't have my dad. I had to, so I didn't have that.
Yeah.
So I was poor. Luckily, I still got A's and B's without studying, because that's just who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily I got through that stuff. But when I actually went to college and got my bachelor's and master's when I was in the Navy, that was different. I had to study. I had to do the stuff, and I had the time to do it. So
yeah, you'd be interested in. I don't know if you've heard of Scott Donnell. He's a buddy of mine, and his mantra is to end the socialism within families. And I had to sit down with him, and we've adopted a lot of his theories about creating self-sufficient kids. Our kids, it was really rough for a transition, but we stopped buying their laundry detergent. We stopped buying their shampoo. We stopped buying everything. And we said, you can earn it. You earn the money. You do gigs around the house. You do earning. We're not doing allowance anymore. We're not going to buy your stuff anymore, but you can earn it. Go and earn it. And now they're the ones in their friends group that has the money and that can pay for things. They've started businesses because of it. And it was a tough transition, let me tell you, but it's been so worth it.
I'll have to look into that.
He's a cool guy.
In my way.
Yeah, I 100% will. He's such a stud.
All right, I think we got across a lot of things today.
I appreciate the conversation, dude. Like this has been refreshing for me. I'm on fire right now.
All right, so you help people get on stages. How do people find you so you can help them?
I'd like to give out my phone number. Just text me. Let's have a conversation. Let me get to know you, because I'm not willing to support causes I don't believe in. So I may or may not be for you. And I think that's obvious by now. But just text me 801-509-5495. Let's chat. Let's just talk.
Now, you're in Utah?
Yep.
Okay. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm just curious. It was either Utah or Arizona. So.
Oh, yeah.
Because Charlie's from Arizona. So, yeah.
Yeah, our house is, we live about 20 minutes north of UVU. Now everyone knows where that is. So that's where we're at.
No, I'm just curious where you lived at, because you said what you said.
Yeah.
And then it was close to you. So it's right there in Utah. How long have you been in Utah?
Oh, my husband teases me about this all the time. I've been here 20 years, but I was born and raised in Colorado. So you can.
Where in Colorado? I lived in Grand Junction, Clifton.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, I know right where Grand Junction is, but we were in Wheat Ridge, right outside Denver, a little town. Our high school mascot was the farmer. So that tells you how rural we were.
Yeah. When I was born in Burlingame, then we moved to Burlingame, California. Then we moved to Colorado, which was Denver, but outside of Denver, I guess was Clifton. I've never been there.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
As a kid. And then Grand Junction's further in. And then we ended up in Maybell, which is outside of Craig. Maybell is where everybody goes elk hunting and deer hunting.
Oh, yep.
Where that town had 100 people, and the school was a 2-room school. By row was your whether you're first grade, second grade, third grade. That lasted for about a year, and then we moved back to California and but to Turlock.
Dude, what a contrast.
Yeah, huge difference. It was, but it was just different. It was a totally different world. And my sister lived in Craig forever, and then now they're still in Colorado. But I enjoyed it. I tell people ask me, why don't you leave California? Because the politics. Well, the only way I want to stay and make California golden again.
Good. We need someone in there.
It's going to. It swings. It's just like what happened in the United States. It swings so far one way, then it swings back the other way, and then usually comes right back in the middle. That's what's going to happen here. It's to a point. If you look at the map, we're so red from this last election. And people didn't put Orange County and San Diego in that, and they should have, because people don't realize Orange County is very conservative, and so is San Diego.
Oh, crazy. Yeah. There was a little strip of blue along the coast, if I remember the maps correctly.
They have the most people along the Bay Area coast. Yeah, but that's all. Yeah, that's just because they had the money. But most of those people have left because of the money thing. And it's so funny how when they're total liberal until they have to pay property tax on their house when they sell it, or income, that tax. And then like, oh my God, why am I paying this?
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
oh boy.
Again, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you being here today.
It was a true pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And if there's anything I can help you with, just let me know.
Yeah, rock on. Same.
Wow, that was a great episode, wasn't it? I want to thank Marianne Hickman for sharing her incredible journey from food stamps to the global stage and everything that we got into about that. That is amazing what we talked about, and I'm just so glad she was here to be here. Her story, I hope, inspired you. And if it did, please be sure to grab for her free resources, mariannehickman.com/guest, and start getting your voice out there. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with somebody who needs a reminder that their next stage might be just one step away. Until next time, keep turning setbacks into setups. I mean, we're going to have to edit that. Until next time, keep turning setbacks into setups for something greater. All right, we're going to edit that and we're going to do it all again. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Inner Edison podcast. Huge thanks to Marianne Hickman for sharing her incredible journey and showing us how failure can be the spark behind the greatest accomplishment. If her story inspired you, please be sure to grab her free resource at mariannehickman.com/guest and start getting your voice out there. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with somebody who needs a reminder that their next stage might be just one step away. Until next time, keep turning setbacks into setups for something greater. And again, thank you so much for being here today.